Tofu.
Hey.
Hello. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. This is Dream Idiots. I'm Morris. That's Brian. Each week we tell each other stories and bring you along for the ride. And the good news is we don't have to go through a litany of places you can find us because starting tomorrow, you can find us at.
Just go to dreamidiots.com. I mean, lots of you are already listening to us and your subscribers on Apple, Spotify, or whatever, Podchaser, all those platforms. The kinks getting worked out with iHeartRadio, so that's going to be fixed in the next 24 hours. And the new website will be up here eminently. And so, if you're looking for any of our shit, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you want to reach out to us, there will be a contact us page. So the time you hear this, there should be if you have a story idea, have a curse word idea, want to just reach out and explain to us just how much we mean to you, you can do that at dreamidiots.com here very shortly. So, and the link to our merch is there as well. So if you really want to, give your wife something great for Mother's Day, a Dream Idiots t-shirt is a great idea.
Yeah. Ah,
No? Come on.
well, I'm not doing that.
Fine.
No, yeah, seriously, if you want to, it's all, yeah. Okay. This is episode 147,
Hmm.
which means you get to go first.
I do. You ready?
Yep. What you got for us?
And thanks for tagging along and hanging in there while we deal with all this stuff. So here the next week it'll all be worked out. But thanks for hanging in there. This week we're going up to your neck of the woods. Ever heard of a town called Silver Plume?
Sure have passed through it almost. Yeah, I know where it is. I know where Silver
Yeah,
Plume
it's
is. Yeah.
so 30 or 40 miles straight west of you.
Hmm.
So Silver Plume, Colorado is kind of known as being a living ghost town. It was big in silver mining back at the tail end of the 19th century, but had a crash. The most recent census indicates this doesn't seem even like it's possible, a population of 130 people. Like, really? Is that, I don't
Could
know.
be.
Could be,
I mean,
but it's
there's ghost towns all over the state. So
right. That's true. So it's almost there. And this town, like I'm sure there's a boatload of towns in Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. It's just lots of transplants, teachers. I guarantee you, there's at least one yoga instructor in Silver Plume because there always is. So artisans, painters, potters, that type of thing. So, the town is, I mean, you would miss it very easily. It's on the interstate. It's on 70. Kind of eerie. It's in the canyon there. It's sort of sandwiched in. I mean, like nothing but shadow. The north side of town receives as little as 2.5 hours of direct sunlight a day in winter, and the south side of town, there's a period of time where six weeks a year where it doesn't get any sun at all on the on the south side of town because it's in the shadow of Pendleton Mountain.
so if
It
you're a
is
vampire and really like being a vampire,
there you go. And it's sort of haunted by just 100 years of a pattern of kind of weird mysteries and bizarre stories that come out of this little town. Somewhere in town, there's a little granite shrine up on a cliff that serves a reminder of the fact that there's a man named Clifford Griffin who was superintendent of the 730 mine who died of a random bullet to the head in 1887, but no one
mhm,
knows who shot it. Whether he shot it himself or whether he was, no one knows.
we
So,
call that the Cliff Griff disease up here.
yeah, I've heard that before, but I'm not sure where.
Yeah,
So
I've new to me.
that's the setting for my little tale. So, we're going to talk about a man named Tom Young. Uh, Tom was a veteran of the Special Forces in the Army, a former high school teacher from nearby Arvada, and moved to Silver Plume in 1969.
Okay.
It would be there for several years. By the 1980s, he was living alone with a dog, his dog named Gus, on the south side of towns. He was in the shadow of Pendleton Mountains. He was in the dark side in the shadowy side of town. And in about 1986, I believe, he decided to open up a bookstore on Main Street in Silver Plume. Not really sure why you do that because it sounds like a great way to not make any money, but nevertheless, he gave it a go. And then the following September, on September 7th, 1987, Tom closed up his bookstore for the day, and his dog went to work with him every day. He and his dog locked
Okay.
he and his dog locked up the shop, and they vanished. Now, it should be made clear that there was a period of time right beforehand he had told people that he was going to Europe for 3 weeks around this period
Hmm.
of time, and so people were doing it. Yeah, seen Tom, heard from Tom. Where's Tom? Oh, he's in Europe. Well, he's probably off in wherever he was allegedly going in Europe. So 3 weeks pass. First week of October roll around, and where's Tom? Shouldn't he be back from Europe by now? And so by the first week of October 1988, several people, at least 6 people, report him missing to the local authorities. In June of 1988, 48-year-old Chicago sports reporter, a man named Keith Reinhardt, decided to begin a 3-month sabbatical, also in Silver Plume. He had been living and working in Chicago for basically his entire life, but he was rapidly approaching 50, kind of midlife crisis age here. Wanted to go out, get some mountain climbing in. He had a fear of heights, definitely suffered from vertigo, which does not seem like the right place to go if you have vertigo.
Nope.
And this is a trope or a meme or something, but he was going to go write a novel. Fuck you. Seems
Jesus,
seems fucking
Bryan.
fucking stupid. But he had an age-old friend, a guy named Ted Parker, who ran a cafe in Silver Plume. Ted's Cafe on Main Street. Ted's Cafe is directly across the street from the bookstore. And so Keith's dream, he's going to go out there and get fit and reclaim some of his youth. He also wants to open up an antique store. So he also wants to not make money in a small town. But his hope is that if it's successful, he's thinking or hoping that he and his wife, Carolyn, can make a go of it and wind up living out there, maybe permanently, if there's any way to sort of eke out a living in Colorado. So,
This is starting to sound like a Stephen King novel. No.
no comment.
Yep.
Right. So, Keith and Ted grew up across the street from each other in the Chicago area and had known each other for literally their whole lives, since like third grade, fourth grade. They were super tight. They considered each other brothers. According to Ted, Keith was super worried, apprehensive about turning 50, but also excited by it. 50 came and went for me, and I didn't care because in my head I'm still like 16, so
Hmm.
age just kind of goes by for me. But he came out to Silver Plume, wanting to, kind of have an experience, I guess. He had a son named Sven. Okay, and Sven said he was looking forward to sort of, again, reclaiming some of his youth. He wanted to make sure that as he got older, he didn't have any regrets. Um, and he was just beginning to feel his age. Wanted to do some things while his body would still let him do it. So Keith's Antique Store on Main Street, across the street from Ted's Cafe, and he soon learned that the building the space that he was occupying used to be Tom's bookstore.
Hmm.
And he starts hearing the details of this story and hearing about Tom's disappearance. And he starts talking to basically anyone in town who knew Tom and knows any details of the story. He starts asking a bunch of questions about it and gets a little bit obsessed and decides that this novel he's going to write is going to be loosely based on Tom and Tom's story. Kind of the main character in this is going to be a combination of himself and Tom. He calls his main character Guy Gypsum. Okay. Uh,
Ooh.
a
Flint Hard
composite,
Rock was already taken.
yeah,
Chunk beef slab.
right. Really, really stupid. But so his daughter later on, Tiffany, would say that he was, very interested in the disappearance and was just talking about it all the time. Tiffany would say that she understood that writers like to live the story that they're writing about and get into it because it was
Hmm.
easier. The more ingrained it is. I mean, I've learned this on this podcast. The more I can really absorb the story I'm telling for any given week, the better I'll be able to tell it, and the better I sort of understand it. And so he starts writing about loosely on Tom's story, featuring the main character of Guy Gypsum. On the 31st of July, 1988, 10 months after Tom had vanished, and just really a few weeks after Keith is in town, there are a couple of hunters exploring up on Republican Mountain, which I think it's just north of town, a mile and a half outside of Silver Plume. They find the remains of Tom and his dog, Gus. Each had died from a single bullet wound to the head. A revolver is found at the scene. Uh, the follow-up investigation revealed that Tom had bought a gun about 4 days prior to his vanishing, and basically the case is closed. It's ruled a suicide. Both the coroner's office and the Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department kind of write it off. And I mean, a story like this is always good, is rife for speculation. But there's some of that speculation makes it sound as though that the location of where the gun was found doesn't make sense for it to have been a suicide. But the details are sketchy. I don't know if is it 10 feet away? Did a huge rainstorm cause it to flow down? I don't know. So I couldn't find the details about that. So some folks think that the location of the gun is suspicious, and there's also a portion of a green tarp is found near the bodies, and so people then speculate that someone made an attempt to conceal the bodies. Nevertheless, these two deaths are ruled. He shoots his dog and then kills himself.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around. That
The dog shoots.
surprises me. Yeah.
So a week later, August 7th, 1988, Keith is at the store and closes up around 2:30 p.m. that day. Throughout that afternoon, he is walking through town, through Silver Plume, and winds up telling several folks that he intends to climb to the top of Pendleton Mountain on the south side of town. Most folks didn't really like, you're doing what? No, you're not. That's crazy. It's the afternoon. Uh,
Mhm.
Most folks by now, knew that he disliked climbing alone. He had a fear of heights. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he went into Ted's cafe and told him the same thing. Or, I'm going to go to the top of the mountain, and tells Ted that, well, if you don't see me or hear from me, be sure to call for rescue. Says goodbye and he leaves. Ted doesn't take him seriously one bit. Keith is last seen walking toward Pendleton Mountain at 4:30 in the late afternoon, way too late to be starting a difficult hike. It's a 6 hour round trip to the top of this mountain. It's not a 14er. It's only about 12,200 feet, but it features, and it's a rough and tumble trail with 60-degree inclines. I mean, it's almost rock climbing.
Hmm.
He walks off with no supplies, no jacket. He's only in a flannel shirt, and no surprise, that night he doesn't return. I mean, it's practically assured. Helicopters are called out to start the search on the ground. You have 125 people and more than a dozen dogs searching for him, going over this terrain again with this steep incline. Uh, it's the area from the center of Silver Plume to the top of the mountain is a change in elevation of more than 3,000 feet in a mile and a half. So it's
Wow.
steep as hell. And I mean, it's hard to find him from the air because he wasn't really carrying anything either.
Hmm.
There's nothing he can signal because he's in blue jeans and a flannel shirt and tennis shoes. No backpack, no equipment to look for, nothing that's bright red or bright orange. And this rescue attempt involved the Colorado Alpine Rescue Team. It was the first person they couldn't find in 30 years
Good God.
of existence. So they tried for 7 days, no sign of Keith on the mountain. Friends later go back to his either to his residence or to the store. I'm not sure which. His residence, I guess, and find a clipping from the newspaper when Tom Young's body had been found. So that's just sitting out on somewhere where that's found. And then they fire up his computer, and someone looks at the novel he's been working on, and the last entry reads, Guy Gypsum changed into some hiking boots and donned a heavy flannel shirt. He understood Tom now and his motivation. Guy closed the door, then walked off towards the lush, shadowless Colorado forest above. And that's the last entry in the novel he's working on. So, you know, this kind of makes it look like it's a copycat. He's going to kill himself as well.
Hmm.
Hard to know exactly. His wife doesn't really think that he's suicidal. But he's certainly going through a midlife crisis, but she describes him as upbeat, optimistic, loved his kid, just had a really, really positive attitude most of the time. And I mean, loved ones kind of always go through this, but loved ones never accept the fact that someone committed suicide. It's a very common refrain.
And she was still
Uh,
back in Chicago, right?
at this point, I think she had not
Okay.
joined him yet. I don't think.
All right.
So the other theory, again, conspiracy theories just love tales like this. And so the next, one theory is that neither one of them committed suicide, but there's some sort of foul play, right? So ballistics could never prove that the bullet that killed Tom actually came from the gun that was found on the scene. Uh, the further speculation is that they both rented the same retail space in the middle of town, and somehow they came across some information that someone didn't want them to have. I mean, who the heck knows what that could
Hmm.
be? Again, wild speculation. So his daughter still believes that foul play has to be involved, and Keith found the same thing that Tom found, whatever the hell that is, and they both died as a result way up on a mountain somewhere. This Sven, the son, doesn't think they're going to find out anything until basically some further evidence is found. Keith's body is found, or something else kind of turns up. The final theory is that Keith basically planned his own disappearance. His wife doesn't think that he would have left at 4 p.m. for a hike it's a long distance with a crazy ass destination at that time of day. It doesn't really make any sense. Again, with the fear of heights, and she thinks it's odd that he wouldn't have taken his camera. He's an avid photographer. You're going to go up to this incredibly picturesque scene, and you're not going to take your camera. That just doesn't really make any sense. In police notes, it's clear that police actually noted that Keith's going through a midlife crisis, and he's getting frustrated that the antique store isn't paying off the way he had hoped. And so the whole thing just is peculiar. But he did make a point of the police note the fact that he told lots of folks that he was going on a hike.
Hmm.
In my mind, that's not weird, because if you're going on a hike by yourself, people tell you all the time, make sure people know where you're going.
Yeah, or
So
don't go on the hike by yourself.
right, but if you are going by
Mm.
yourself, make
Yeah.
absolutely certain that that people know where you are. So that makes sort of perfect sense. So Carolyn, again, she doesn't believe that Keith would just walk away from his life. He had told people that he needed to go to West Virginia for some reason. So, but again, he never turns up in West Virginia. There's no look-alike that lost their memory that ever turns up that seems to be him. And Carolyn, quickly, I think she sort of comes to the conclusion that he must be dead, but it's sort of open-ended. Again, one of their footnote is, as I mentioned, he had told friends shortly before disappearing that he wanted to visit someone in West Virginia. The night he vanished, he attended a party where he spent a long period of time talking to a woman named Greta or Gretchen, who was from Denver. Police initially thought that she may have had some information on that. But then 10 years later, in 1998, they find Greta and interview her and realize that there's, no connection there whatsoever. In weirdly, not related, but weirdly, in November 2001, the son, Sven, dies of carbon monoxide poisoning. Whenever I hear a tale like that, like, how the fuck does that happen in the 21st century? So that's awful. Keith has never been found. Never, ever, ever been found. he has been declared legally dead, so people assume that he is by now because it's
Hmm.
been so long. There's a documentary out there called Dark Side of the Mountain, and that was started a little more than 10 years ago. I think it was started in 2014. It is not yet complete. It hasn't been released yet, but it explores both Tom and Keith's disappearance and does sort of speculate that they were victims of foul play out on the mountain. No release date has been disclosed as yet, and there were some other college filmmakers working on a student project in September of 21 who were shooting some film footage on Pendleton Mountain, just coming up on 4 years ago. And when they were out, they found Keith's wallet on the mountain. I don't know why you'd take your wallet on a hike, but they found something. Uh, and to this day, Keith Reinhardt is still missing. And that documentary should come out one day. Dark Side of the Mountain. So dark side. So some of the research for this came. A lot of the Dark Side of the Mountain research is available online, even though the movie is not done yet.
Hmm.
And a lot of this came from Unsolved Mysteries because it was on that TV show at one
Oh
point
yeah,
in
yeah,
in
okay,
about
yeah.
in about 1990. So those are the sources of two guys that vanished in very similar fashion.
Yeah, I read about this a long time ago. It might have even been before I moved out here, but uh it is just absolutely eerie. It's got shades of like Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, very much
Seriously, I
so.
mean, it's just because they just found their film, they just find his wallet. This idea that he replicates this guy's disappearance.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just it's one of those creepy ones that just leaves you unsettled and you don't feel quite right after hearing the story. Um, but the the thing that I come to is, was it a matter of lack of respect for nature?
Yeah, I
Any
mean,
hike can be dangerous.
right, could well be. I mean, I mean, I'll walk around in town with my cell phone, sure, but I spend some time up in the mountains now and again. I am not a fan of going too far by myself.
No, no,
Right,
it's something we used to teach in Cub Scouts.
right.
Take a
The buddy,
hiking buddy.
right, the buddy system, right? Right,
Yeah.
critical.
But it's also got shades of like Alexander von Supertramp and Into the Wild, John Krakauer's book.
Right, right.
Just kind of going off the grid and yeah, it's eerie. And also, I mean, I understand why, because when did this happen again?
88, 88,
Okay.
89.
Yeah, there's good places to open up antique stores, and I'm not sure Silver
Denver.
Plume would have been one of them. Well, no, no,
Right.
one of the other mountain towns that's got Aspen,
Right.
right?
Glenwood Springs.
Vale, yeah, Glenwood Springs, right? If there's any place along I-70 and 82 heading up to Roaring Fork that would be better. Leadville, I mean, anywhere. Um, Elgibel, Carbondale, I can just rattle them off. Uh, Maybe not Woody Creek because Hunter S. Thompson was still alive. It'll be creeping around there back then. But uh, yeah, of all the places to do that, same thing with a bookstore. It
Yeah.
just doesn't seem that just doesn't seem to. Why would you be surprised when it doesn't work? I mean, it just that is so weird, Bryan. It just
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I'll be driving past there in August, so maybe
Okay,
we'll
good.
pop in and drive through and
Just drive down Main Street and pull into Ted's Cafe and or any cafe you can find and just ask him. So people still talk about Tom and Keith anymore? Just out of curiosity. Yeah.
yeah, I'm also curious as to what's in the spot now where the
Mhm.
bookstore and the antique store used to be.
Yes, I
It, it,
guarantee you, someone knows.
and it's also, again, it's also got hints to Salem's Lot about a town that's just disappearing by Stephen
Mhm.
King, and ugh, that's a creepier. That's a yeah. I've got a few books here in Colorado. I need to look up see if that story's in there anywhere.
Mhm.
I don't even remember where I read about it, heard about it. Um,
It's been on at least one other podcast that I found, and
yeah.
there are several articles. There are a couple that get really lost in the minutia that didn't seem worth diving into. But a weird, it's not really copycat crime, but a copycat. I don't know. It is
No, it's
bizarre.
life imitating life, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It is a creepy story, and if you've ever been in a little mountain town where the sun doesn't shine too terribly much during the winter
Hmm.
months, it's exceedingly can get exceedingly strange. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and just talk about a recipe for depression, lack of sunlight.
yeah, and it's a shame because I love little towns like that. I love little mountain towns, but
Right, right.
you got to live high up on the mountain to get the sunlight. So
Right, Gunnison or
what's
places like
that?
that.
What's that James Carville used to say? I live so far back in the woods, they had to pump the shot sunshine in, that kind of thing.
Right.
Brian, excellent story, man.
Yeah.
That'll keep me awake tonight.
Okay, good. That was the
Um,
goal.
do we have a goal for curse word of the week?
We do. We're gonna play a little game. This is not a curse word that you will have heard of before because I made it up. It's a little game I call Mushroom Roulette. So I noticed a few days ago after some a light rainstorm here that there's a little outcropping of mushrooms basically outside my bedroom window, like two or three dozen. Like, wow, it's the first time I noticed mushrooms there in 3 years that I've been here. And it got me thinking about the different types of mushrooms that are out there and what's edible and what's not. And I recall vividly as a kid being told not to touch them because they're dangerous because they'll eat your face off or whatever. And you may know that there actually is a pretty common mushroom in Texas, in basically Central and East Texas, called the death cap. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I didn't know it was I don't. I know virtually nothing about mushrooms
Okay.
because I can't
So,
stand them. So,
oh, really? Oh,
no.
I love a little sauteed mushroom. So the death cap is very well. They say very common. I don't know what that means, but very common in this part in Texas. But varieties are worldwide. Death caps, obviously all mushrooms love humidity. Death caps, you prefer areas around oak trees for some reason.
Hmm.
But if you eat too many death caps, they will absolutely kill you. and
Okay. Yeah.
and so they uh yeah, it's just basically it's a there's no antidote for them. So our little game of mushroom roulette is let's say that you walked into let's say you walked into Ted's Cafe in Colorado. You're gonna sit down and have an omelet, and it's 3 eggs and some tomato and some cheese, and you have a choice of one of four mushrooms. I'm gonna read these four names to you,
Hmm.
and you get to tell me which mushroom you'd like to have in your omelet. Although you hate
Okay.
mushrooms. So if you have to choose one, here are four different mushroom varieties for you. Ready?
Okay. Sure.
Would you like the deadly dapperling, the destroying angel, the black trumpet of death, or Satan's bolete? Bolete. A bolete is a type of mushroom that has spores, not ribs underneath. Deadly Dapperling, Destroying Angel, Black Trumpet of Death, or Satan's Bolete. Full disclosure here, three of these will absolutely kill you.
All right. I've heard of trumpet flowers being poisonous before. I don't know if that's the case with these.
Uh-huh.
I don't like the sound of that last one. That
Satan's
sounds just
Bolete.
like Satan's bolete. That sounds like a part of the anatomy we shouldn't know about. I'll go with destroying angel. It sounds like it's a hallucinogen.
Destroying Angel can have some psilocybin sorts of effects, but it'll also shut down your organs and kill you in a matter of days.
Okay.
As with Deadly Dapperling,
Okay.
Satan's Bolete will kill you in a somewhat more gastric way.
Ooh.
I don't quite know what that means. Well, I don't know
Oh,
if you blow
I
up
think
or
I think your
right,
insides end up on your outsides. I think
right,
that's
very much
exactly what
so.
happens with that.
But the Black Trumpet of Death apparently has a nice light flavor and pairs well with a white wine reduction and with seafood, with fish. Apparently, is quite lovely. It's called the Black Trumpet of Death. So the mushroom people need some better marketing.
Yeah, that's the black trumpet of flavor. Anything
Yeah,
other than that,
right,
of
right.
course, it would.
The the pink, I don't know, pink bubble gum. Call it literally anything else.
The good thing about this is that it's all hypothetical for me because I wouldn't have those nasty things in my omelet anyway. So
What's wrong with you?
I- they grow in poop.
I can't follow your logic.
Okay, so the black trumpet of death. So
Hmm.
when I go to Ted's Cafe, I will order an omelet, and
Please,
I'll
three
put
ounces of
mushrooms.
black trumpet of death. Right.
I'll put mushrooms in it because my wife eats mushrooms, and she can have that half of the omelet.
There you go.
I'll be one of those customers. Well, thank you, Brian. That was a fun little excursion. Trumpet is a word that is falling on hard times for one reason or another. Don't know why. Anyway, thank you for the curse word of the week.
Mhm.
Are you ready for my story?
I am.
Okay. This is A Tale of Two Restaurants, part two.
Part two,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. In part one, we visited the Twin Cities and the battle between two restaurants over a hamburger's origins. Here in part two, we head east to Detroit, Michigan. And at some point, I will pronounce it Detroit, and I apologize. Detroit. Detroit, Michigan. I'll be honest here. I don't have much of a connection to Detroit as I do with last episode's city, Minneapolis. I would like to because Detroit sounds like a really cool place. I'll get to the restaurant feud in a moment. But first, some stuff about Detroit. Stuff about Detroit. Stuff about Detroit. Detroit lies on the banks of what river, Brian?
Oh shit. I've driven over that river.
I've had to look it up. I had to look it up. It's the Detroit River.
Is it, okay, I was a little
Yes.
bit about to say that, but
It's right across from Windsor, Ontario,
right.
Canada. The Detroit metro area is the largest city in the state of Michigan and I didn't know this, largest U.S. city on the Canadian-U.S. border. The metro area has 4.3 million people, according to the 2020 U.S. Census. Only Chicago has more people in the Midwest. Midway through the 20th century, the 1950 U.S. Census indicated that Detroit was the fifth largest city in the country. I did not know it was ever that big,
Wow. Yeah.
with 1.85 million inhabitants. But 70 years later, the 2020 census revealed that people had been leaving the city. Over the decades, the population in 2020 of the Detroit city, not the metro area, but the city itself, was down to 639,000.
Wow.
So it took a huge hit, almost two-thirds of a hit. USnews.com's best places to live in the US in 2025. You might recall we used that last time for Minneapolis. It ranks the top 150 cities according to four criteria: value, job market, desirable place to live, and the quality of life. You want to take a stab to where Detroit fell in this 150 list?
149?
149. Very good. Just under the wire. Yes.
Really?
149 out of 150. Yes. In under the wire. Bam. Um, that was astonishing. Well done. The city's identity for decades was, and to a certain extent still is, defined by the auto industry. The metro area and its surroundings were home of the big three automakers, GM, Chrysler, and Ford, for most of the 20th century. Given that there have been some 1,900 automakers for the last 130 years in this country, that's pretty impressive that the biggest of them were all in one place at
Right.
the same time. The problem with a city having one major export or one major field should be obvious, and Detroit has had to weather that storm for quite a bit. At one point, 60% of the city's population relied on the auto industry for employment. Detroit has given us some great people. Astronaut Greg Jarvis, Steve Ballmer, perhaps the coolest owner in the NBA, Tom Hayden. You know that name, Tom Hayden? That's a name that creeps around the back of your
Yeah,
mind.
political advocates
Yes.
was married to Jane Fonda at one point. Yeah, I can't be
Yeah.
on that, but
Founder of Students for Democratic Society. Yeah.
right.
Actors and directors and producers such as Ellen Burstyn, Bruce Campbell, Francis Ford Coppola is from Detroit, and Gene Reynolds from one of our favorite TV shows, MASH. The producer for MASH is from Detroit. I would also be remiss here to not, if I did not mention my favorite Detroit native, ABA, NBA star George Gervin.
Oh wow.
Magazine columnist E. Jean Carroll, who's been in the news the last few years, also spent 3 seasons writing for Saturday Night Live, claims Detroit is her home. No Detroit list would be complete without those great child psychiatrists, Sam Richardson and Tim Robinson. Any kind of discipline.
Very obscure reference that I hope someone actually got hearing this
Yes,
hilarious show.
if you haven't seen the TV show Detroiters, it only lasted
Yeah.
2 seasons. Holy shit, is it funny? Go and watch it now. We'll wait. None camp. That's another good line. Okay, good. Perhaps most importantly, Bryan, Detroit is not the birthplace of Pete Hegseth,
Hmm.
but it is the birthplace of Ted Nugent, so it's kind of a wash.
Right.
Here's some musicians way better than Ted Nugent who hail from Detroit. Hank Ballard. Ballard and the Midnighters.
No.
Work with me, Annie.
No.
Smokey Robinson. Bob Seger. Mary Wells. And Mr. Excitement himself, Jackie Wilson. You know Jackie Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, Tennessee born but Detroit raised Aretha Franklin. Now, Aretha, remember, was not on the Motown roster. She was on Atlantic. But Barry Gordon's Motown records and his associated acts were perhaps the best known musical export from Detroit. There's also Iggy Pop, with or without the Stooges, the MC5, the White Stripes, and Eminem. Scores of great jazz musicians have called Detroit their hometown, such as Alice Coltrane, Kenny Burrell, and Donald Byrd. Detroit is also often cited as the birthplace of techno, which I did not know.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea.
Yep. Detroit has several institutions of higher education, including Wayne State University. One Wayne State professor went on to teach in the University of Utah Department of Communication. His name is Mark McPhail. Look him up. He's a great dude. I never took a class from Professor McPhail, gave the incoming graduate students, of which I was one, the two best pieces of advice I ever heard. The first is, know the name of everyone who works in your building.
Hmm.
He meant the professors, the clerical staff, the custodians, everyone. Treat them all equally with respect. The second was something I repeat in the closing seconds of almost every episode of this podcast. Be good to each other. Good guy, look him up. He's been through some stuff, but he's a great educator. My favorite Detroit event occurs yearly at Comerica Park, home of the American League Detroit Tigers. On the last Sunday home game in August, Tiger fans celebrate the TV detective Thomas Magnum from the 1980s TV show Magnum PI.
Right.
Actor Tom Selleck is a Detroit native, and like his fictional counterpart, a huge Tigers fan. Selleck was even once a minority owner of the team. On Magnum PI Day, fans are encouraged to dress as the detective, complete with mustache, sunglasses, Hawaiian flower t-shirt, and the classic blue Tigers baseball cap with the old style white script D on it. Look up pictures. It looks like a hoot. It looks really fun, and I think it would be a great setting for a murder mystery. Can you describe what the killer looked like? Well, it was kind of like that time we were at Stubbs Barbecue in Austin, and our waiter just wandered off. We didn't see him for like 20 minutes, and we saw him like once. The guy bartender was like, "Hey man, could you?" Our waiter disappeared, and he's like, "What does he look like?" And all the waiters had gotees and ponytails. Remember that? And it was just like, he looks like everybody here.
He looks like you.
Exactly. So now on to the meat of the story, so to speak. Hey Bryan, you like hot dogs? You like hot dogs? That was my terrifying Randy voice from. Do you like hot dogs?
I do, but as I've gotten older, lean for like the kosher beef frank or a brat, more like that. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So how do you take your hot dog?
Oh, mustard and kraut.
Well, that's close. I guess that's acceptable. The correct answer is sweet relish, brown mustard, and raw white onions.
Also,
And
yeah, but sweet relish is a invention of the devil. No,
no. It's a nice little counterpoint to the
No.
onion and the
Wrong.
mustard. So I was at a concert once. It was Lyle Lovett, and my older son, I guess he was about 12 or 13, is right when we moved here. And he asked me, "Hey Dad, what are you going to get your hot dog?" And I said, "What I get every time: relish, mustard, and onions." And this lady just spins around in line and looks at us both and says, "And that's the way it should be." Or, in the words of the fictional police detective Dirty Harry from the 1983 film Sudden Impact, "You know what really bothers me? It's watching you stuff your face with those hot dogs. Nobody, I mean nobody, puts ketchup on a hot dog." I find that vile. Ketchup belongs on one thing, French fries, and that's it.
Yeah, if you're a child, it's acceptable.
Sure.
Beyond that, right?
Yeah, once you can like legally drive, no.
Right.
This story involves two hot dog eateries with a rivalry stretching back a century. Much in the way you identify New Yorkers by the baseball team they follow, a native Detroiter may be subdivided by which Coney Island hot dog joint they prefer. American Coney Island or Lafayette. I seem to recall watching a police procedural. I'm not sure which one it was. It might have been this one show called Low Winter Sun that lasted like a season. I seem to recall anyway watching this police procedural, and it's set in Detroit where the two new partners, these detectives on the police force, size each other up and they go out to lunch, and one says American and the other shakes his head and says, no, Lafayette.
Hmm.
Featured on food programs such as Man vs. Food and Food Wars, the basic recipe for a Detroit Coney Island calls for a natural casing wiener covered with chili, diced onions, and yellow mustard.
Hmm.
There are and have been multiple Coney Island hot dog restaurants in the Detroit area, going as far back as 1914 with Todorow's Original Coney Island out in Jackson, Michigan, some 75 miles west of Detroit. Today's story, however, starts in 1917 when Greek immigrant Gust Karos ran a hot dog cart at the corner of Michigan and Lafayette in downtown Detroit. Business got so good that he opened a storefront on Lafayette and brought his brother Bill over to the States to help out. Why exactly Bill left the family business in 1924 seems to remain unclear over a century later, but leave he did to open his own Coney Island restaurant. You may recall that the two restaurants from the last episode were a little under 3 miles apart along Cedar Avenue South in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Bill went up the block a ways and set up shop with Lafayette Coney Island. By up the block, I mean 66 feet. According to Google Maps, it takes 1 minute by foot, car, or bike to travel between the restaurants, and that's only because Google Maps doesn't measure in seconds. American Coney is located at 114 West Lafayette, and Lafayette is located at 118 West Lafayette. They are literally next door to each other. American has fully embraced the 21st century with multiple locations and a website. Lafayette only shows up through a community-run fan site, and there's only one restaurant, the original location. American holds sway as it's the older of the two. Writer Savannah Walker taps into a deep reason it's so popular. Quote, it's not just a hot dog. It's a rite of passage, a cultural touchstone. President Bill Clinton died there in 1994, no doubt suppressing a grin at two of his favorite activities, eating and hearing someone say the word wiener. American seems to have the spicier chili than its competitor. American Coney Island also has a location in the classiest of U.S. cities, the place where dreams go to die, Las Vegas. It's located in the D, a hotel casino combo. I'm fairly sure the D here stands for downtown, as in Fremont Street. I know you're not a Vegas guy, but that would be the downtown area. Joe Biden, however, dined at Lafayette in 2009 while serving as vice president. He was the guest of then Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm, and I think Granholm ended up being his Secretary of Energy, I think.
That sounds right.
Anyway, the Veep and the governor ate at the counter, each seated upon a stool dedicated to former U.S. Representative from Michigan and U.S. President Gerald Ford. A small plaque sits above each stool, one for the time Ford choked on a hot dog as a congressman, the other for the time he choked on the styrofoam container as president. Ford would later refer to the second
He choked
incident.
on the container?
President Ford would later refer to the second incident while in a 1976 to San Antonio. He described a tamale he almost choked on as one tricky hot dog. None of that is true, by the way.
Oh, okay. Say
It very well could
you
be.
You fooled me then, right?
The tamale part is true. Remember, he tried to eat the tamale with the husk on.
Right.
Remember that? San Antonio Mayor Lila Cockrell commented, and this is a direct quote, it was obvious he didn't get a briefing on the eating of tamales. And that joke was brought to you courtesy of Saturday Night Live circa 1976. The competition seems to be good for both joints, even when things get nasty. I believe it probable that the rivalry between the two family-owned restaurants, remember, two branches of the same family tree, was played up for the public. It would be a smart strategy to use the rivalry to build up loyal customer bases for both. But the family aspect ended sometime in 1993 as Lafayette was sold to its employees. In 2022 and 2025, Lafayette was cited for health code violations owing to rodent sightings. Someone saw a rat, and droppings were present in the restaurant's basement. Grace Karos, current owner of the American, remember, right next door, called reporters in for an impromptu conference. She referred to a rat infestation next door and declared, "I'll be damned if I'm going to allow them to hinder my business or take me down along with their situation." She also listed the steps her employees take to ensure a clean environment on her property. Lafayette then posted a report from pest control company Orkin. The report indicated that there were no rats on the Lafayette premises. This led to accusations by the owners against Grace Caros for bashing the competition. Orkin reps tried to play peacemaker by pointing out that rats are actually a city problem, not the sole domain of one restaurant. A quote, united front is necessary against rat infestation,
Right.
said the company. And it's vital in Detroit, which was described by Orkin as one of America's, quote, rattiest cities. I don't care. I still want to go out to Detroit sometime, hang out for a few days, and definitely go down to check out the Coney Island rivalry of Detroit. I think I'll maybe take someone with me and we each split a dog at each place. I don't know.
Doggo.
Uh, anyway, for that matter, I also want to explore all that Detroit has to offer. It sounds like it's really coming back in a big way, and I think it'd be a fun place to visit. Any comments on this second rivalry we've covered?
That's pretty. I love the idea of going there and trying them both. And now I'm jonesing for a hot dog now. So
Yeah,
there's no good
I did too when I
hot dog
finished. I
places.
made
And I
one
was like,
last night.
I
Yeah.
kind of want a chili dog now. Oh shit, where do I go for a chili dog in town? Oh shit.
Well, there is
Oh well.
James Coney Island, which is a Texas chain. I don't know if there's any San Antonio. We had one in Houston, and that was the boys' go-to place when they couldn't agree on where to go.
Does not
James
ring a
Coney
bell.
Island. Because Coney Island, they think where it came from was that a bunch of immigrants passed through New York City on their way out west,
Uh,
and they went to Coney Island.
right, right,
And so that's where this, because the Coney Island dog is basically the same wherever you go. It's just a matter of what kind of chili do you put on it, that kind of thing.
right.
And that scene I mentioned from that TV show about the two cops, I believe the scene takes place right in front of the restaurants, and they walk up and they go to the separate restaurants, have lunch separately, and then come back out to go back to work. Sources for this piece were the usnews.com's Best Places to Live in the US in 2025 article online, Wikipedia for basic info on the Detroit Tigers and the city of Detroit in general, Google Maps for the Lafayette Boulevard addresses, an article called Lafayette Coney Island Through the Years, mainly a pictorial from the Detroit Free Press. It was run on January 25th and again on the 31st, 2025. There's no author for that piece. Tim Marklew's Tim, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Mark Liu's article from July 7th, 2017 from the culturetrip.com, the story behind the rivalry between Detroit's two oldest Coney Island restaurants. Yara Simon's December 1st, 2016 article from remezcla.com. In 1976, a tamale eating mishap may have cost Gerald Ford the presidency. Savannah Walker's piece from FamilyDestinationsGuide.com of January 2nd of this year. This mouth-watering Coney dog road trip will take you to 11 unforgettable Michigan joints. I don't think I could do 11 different hot dog joints on a
Right.
trip through Michigan. Frank Witzel and Susan Salaski's February 2nd, 2025 article, Century-Old Detroit Coney Island Rivalry is being threatened by rats, from the DetroitFreePress.com. And that
Sweet.
is our second installment of A Tale of Two Restaurants.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had a reader predict what it would be, and
Uh,
I'm sorry, don't mention what it is. I may do that one yet, but sorry,
So-
Bay Area Brad, you were off by a couple hundred miles.
yeah. So maybe part three coming.
There might be part three coming on
Right.
another restaurant rivalry, as suggested by one of our listeners. And I believe Bay Area Brad is a first time listener, but a long time caller. Is that how that works?
So, yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's it. That's Detroit and their Coney Island rivalry.
Excellent. Yeah. Very funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to make a hot dog last night before I went to bed because I was just like, and I had grilled some last weekend for the boys, and I was like, fortunately, I didn't have any raw onions. I did have my brown mustard and my sweet relish, but had to do with that anyway.
Damn. Oh well. You suffered.
I suffered.
Yeah. When we finish up, I'm gonna Google chili dogs in Texas, because I mean, if you had to, you could go to Sonic, but I'll probably have to like buy The Jewish National, the
Hebrew
whatever
National. Yeah.
Hebrew National Franks, and then I make a mean chili actually, so I could do it at home. I don't know. It's tempting.
You want to use some Wolf Brand chili? How long's it been since you had Wolf Brand chili? Do they even make Wolf Brand chili anymore? I don't even know if they do.
Uh, I'm sure that they do. I that stuff. I'm not sure I've ever eaten a single can of that stuff because after those commercials from 40 years ago were just so disgusting.
I actually like Stag's chili, which you could get out west where I lived in Salt Lake. Stag's was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But I know canned chili turns a lot of people off, but it was cheap and it
Now,
was good. It was filling.
there's a local, a regional chain. Amy's has some canned chili that's pretty good.
Amy's ice cream and chili?
No,
Oh, okay.
different chain, right?
Different
Yeah,
chain. Okay.
it's possible to do it acceptably, but most folks don't. So
So as a precursor to next week's episode is going to be a little bit different, but you'll see why when we get there.
mhm.
But until then, I would like to wish all the moms and grandmas and almost moms and out there a happy Mother's Day, which is coming up this weekend. I always think about my
Yep,
mom this time of year.
me
And
too.
Bryan, you lost your mom recently. So hug your mom if she's still around. Buy her a nice brunch and spend some time with her if you can. Anything
Very
else,
good.
Bryan?
That's it. Thanks for listening to us. We appreciate it. We're off last week. We'll be on here for the next probably several weeks in a row, we think, and we appreciate you listening. If you can, give us 5 stars on whichever platform you're listening to us on. That'd be great. Shoot us a review and check out dreamidiots.com. New and improved this week.
And in the words of Professor Mark McPhail, be good to each other.